When I was in my 20s, I worked for a hospital. I was a scheduler. I actually worked in a couple different departments. I worked in a cardiology department and in a dermatology department. And what I noticed when I worked at those places was that they would have drug lunches. And drug lunches were when pharmaceutical reps would come over. These people knew, most of the time, they knew nothing about they weren't nurses. They didn't come from a medical background. They were just very well dressed, very nice looking young people, and they were salesmen. They knew how to sell the drugs that they were introducing to the doctors, and they would bring sample packets. And they would explain the drugs to the doctors, and they would bring these lavish, wonderful lunches, these takeout lunches, and we would spend our lunch hour, eating this wonderful takeout that they brought to the hospital. And they would try to sell these pharmaceuticals, these prescriptions, to the doctors. And then the doctors would have samples to give to the customers. And what I thought was kind of interesting was they didn't come from medical backgrounds most of the time. And they were salespeople. And I just thought, there's just something that doesn't sit right with me. It didn't seem right to me. And, I just started digging into that. And then there were meetings that we'd have, and I'd hear even the doctors and nurses talking about how they could raise revenue. It was as if the hospital was a big business. And they were talking about, well, if we do more of these tests and those tests bring in a lot of revenue, and, is there a way we can prescribe and recommend more of that? And, and I know I'm getting into some really touchy ground here that some people are just not going to appreciate. And you may have a different experience than mine. I'm only telling you this is my experience. But as a scheduler, sitting there and watching them have meetings about how to bring in revenue, and they would bill on the physician side and they'd bill on the facility side, and the bills that people got were astronomically high. And, billing somebody 2 and 3 times just seemed wrong to me also. And prescribing tests that would bring in revenue for the means of bringing in revenue just didn't seem right to me too. And then, of course, it's all under the guise of if there's something going on with the person, we don't want to be liable, so therefore we need to be thorough, so we need to do all these tests on this person, and by means of doing all these tests we bring in more revenue. So I just thought it was really kind of a shored up cycle, and I didn't like what I was seeing. So since, I want to say, about 10 years, I myself, by the grace of God, have stayed out of the medical system. And I've actually done pretty well. I think I've only been to a medical doctor twice in almost 10 years. And I'm not saying I'll never go to another medical doctor, but it just makes you question the system. That's all. There are a lot of good doctors out there that have a good heart, that went into the profession because they wanted to take care of people. But I'm sure they see things now that they're in the profession that they say, what's the motive here? Why do we do it this way? What's the reason? What's going on? And I think everybody is waking up and starting to question a lot of things. And like I said before, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not in the medical profession. But as a scheduler, that was my own personal experience, and that was my own personal observation.